For the pastry, you'll need 90 grams of softened butter, 65 grams of caster sugar, 3 egg yolks and 200 grams of plain flour. For the filling, you'll need 400 grams of pumpkin puree, 90 grams of caster sugar, a quarter teaspoon of salt, a quarter teaspoon of grated nutmeg, a half a teaspoon of cinnamon, 1 beaten egg, 12 grams of melted butter and 85 millilitres of milk. Right, so we've got a mixing bowl here, and into that is going to go our 65 grams of sugar and 90 grams of butter. Now, if you were paying attention at the top of this episode, you would have remembered me saying that we were going to use softened butter. I, of course, forgot to soften my butter, so the next step is to cream these two together. And ordinarily, you'd use a whisk for that, but I'm a bit worried that my butter's actually too firm, so I'm going to get this started with a fork, and we can move on from there. Okay, yeah, definitely soften your butter before you get started doing that, because with a fork that was a lot of work and not very much fun. Anyway, never mind, it is going to get easier now, because one by one we're going to add in 3 egg yolks. We're just going to separate out the yolks from the whites and beat them in gradually into the mix. So if you've never separated an egg before, do not worry, it is relatively simple. I've just got a cup here to catch the yolk, and ordinarily when I break an egg I just break it and do it one-handed, but what you do is get a slight crack on the side of the egg like that, get your thumbs in and your fingers underneath here to very gently pull it open, and then your goal is to catch the yolk, you can see just there in the shell, and then you just sort of pass it back and forth between the two halves as you let the whites run out of the shell like that. So that is one straight into the bowl, and we're going to beat that in and then do that 2 more times. Alright, well at least we got the whisk in there at the end. So with that done, the next step is to add about 200 grams of plain flour and mix it all together to form a dough. Right, so this is our short crust dough, and to be honest I'm fairly thrilled with this. I'm going to give it a very quick knead just to make sure it is smooth, and then I'm going to wrap it up in cling film and put it in the fridge for half an hour while we get to work on the filling. Is quite easy to make. Into the bowl you stick the sugar, salt, nutmeg and cinnamon, and then you just mix that all together before adding in the milk, beaten egg, and the melted butter before giving it all a really good stir. Then of course the final and most important step is to add in the pumpkin and give that a good stir to combine. And there we go, that is our pie filling, which to be honest looks an awful lot darker than I thought it would, but never mind, I guess we'll see what it comes out like once it's baked. And talking of baking, it's time to preheat the oven now, because we need to blind bake the casing. Right, so we've got our pastry here, it's just come out of the fridge. We've also got this little pie dish. So all we need to do now is clear some space so that we can start rolling this out and lining the tin. Come on. So there's our pie case there. We've actually got some leftover dough, but what you can do is freeze that for later use if you so wish. Now what we need to do is line this with some baking parchment and then get some baking beans in there. Of course, if you don't have baking beans, you can use other things like lentils or dried beans or rice. Here we go then, so I went with what I had in the cupboard, which was some red split lentils, and I have put them in and made sure that they're sort of pushed into all the corners of my case, which is now going to go in the oven for 15 minutes, and then I'm going to take this paper and those lentils out and put it back in for another 10 minutes until it's gold and biscuity, in theory. That is not too bad. It's a little bit browner on the top than maybe I would have liked, but yeah, I'm alright with that, to be perfectly honest. What I'm going to do now is just leave this to cool for a few minutes, because we actually need to turn our oven up from gas mark 4 to gas mark 7. So while that's preheating, we'll let the case cool down and then we'll pour in the filling and slam it in the oven. Right then, so I think the oven is up to speed. So what we're going to do now is just return to our filling, which we've got here in this bowl, and start pouring it in to the pie case. Making sure we get everything off the sides. Right, now we're just going to spread this out so it's kind of even in the case. There we go. And hey, before it goes in the oven, look at that. That looks quite a lot like a pumpkin pie to me. Anyway, what we're going to do now is stick this in the oven at gas mark 7 for 10 minutes, and then we're going to duck the temperature back down to gas mark 4 for another 35 to 40 minutes. Personally, I have absolutely no idea why we're doing that, but I looked up a recipe and that's what it told me to do, so that's what I'll be doing. If anyone knows why I'm doing that, let me know. Very nearly sneezed on the pumpkin pie there. Nope, needs a little while longer. Alright, so this is our pumpkin pie from Stardew Valley. It's just come out of the oven, and I've managed to sort of eliminate the wobble that we had going on, which is good news. And well, basically all that's left to do now is leave it to cool, and then once it's cooled we're going to pop it out of this casing and see what it's like. Okay, moment of truth time, by which I of course mean, whoops, time to turn it out of the pie tin and hope I don't drop it time. It was actually still a little bit warm, but alright, there we go. Not gonna lie, I'm actually a little bit worried that maybe this is slightly underbaked in terms of the filling, but I've never made pumpkin pie before, and I was a bit worried that the top and the pastry might burn, so I sort of just went for it. Seems to cut okay. Okay, I think we're all right. See, hang on, let me get another little plate. Yeah. Okay. You know what, I reckon I more than got away with that. That actually looks pretty good to me. Maybe the pastry just next to the filling is slightly underdone? I don't know. Sod it, why do myself down? I think that looks okay. Let's see what it tastes like. Right, so moment of truth. Let's see what pumpkin pie from the Stardew Valley is actually like. Incredibly sweet is the answer.